HOA cut my boat loose during a storm. I got their president indicted without saying a word. Have you ever wondered how far someone would go to enforce a petty rule, even if it meant risking lives and property? In the quiet coastal community of Bayview Estates, where the salty breeze carried dreams of freedom on the water, one man's obsession with control turned a stormy night into a battle that would unravel his empire. It was a late summer evening when the first gusts of an approaching storm began rattling the windows of my small waterfront home. My pride and joy, a 25-foot fishing boat named Serenity, was securely moored at the community dock, its lines triple-checked as the weather warnings blared. I'd lived in Bayview for 3 years, dutifully paying my HOA dues, attending meetings, and keeping my property pristine to avoid the wrath of our HOA president, Richard Kessler. Richard was the kind of man who wore his authority like a crown, strutting through the neighborhood with a clipboard, citing violations for unshaded porch lights or untrimmed hedges. To him, the HOA's rules were sacred, and he was their self-appointed guardian. That night, as the storm surged, I watched from my window as waves battered the dock. My boat bobbed but held firm until it didn't. Around midnight, I saw something impossible. Serenity was drifting, its mooring lines severed, tossed like a toy in the churning water. I grabbed my raincoat and sprinted to the dock, heart pounding. The ropes weren't frayed or snapped. They'd been cleanly cut. Someone had done this deliberately. By the time I reached the shore, Serenity had slammed into a neighbor's jetty. Its hull cracked, my dream reduced to splinters. Who would do this? And why? The next morning, I surveyed the wreckage, my stomach churning with anger and loss. Neighbors gathered, whispering sympathies, but no one had seen anything, or so they claimed. I filed a police report, but with no witnesses and the storm's chaos, the officer said it'd be hard to pin down. Still, a nagging suspicion pointed to Richard. He'd been hounding me for weeks about my boat, claiming it was too large for the dock despite meeting every regulation in the HOA's covenants. I'd shown him the paperwork, but he just smirked, saying, "We'll see about that." I couldn't prove he'd cut the lines, but I knew he was capable of it. Richard's reign was built on intimidation, and I wasn't his first target. Enter Clara, a retired private investigator who lived 3 houses down. Clara was a wild card, a sharp-witted woman in her 60s who'd moved to Bayview for a quiet life, but couldn't resist a mystery. She'd had her own run-ins with Richard. Once over her unapproved garden gnome sand had been quietly watching him. Over coffee, she leaned in, her eyes glinting. "You want to know who cut your boat loose? Don't confront Richard. He's too slippery. Let me dig." I was skeptical but desperate, so I nodded. Clara's plan was simple. Follow the trail without making a sound. Clara didn't waste time. She started attending every HOA meeting, sitting in the back, taking notes, and asking innocent questions about dock maintenance and security. She chatted up neighbors, piecing together stories of Richard's overreach, fines for minor infractions, threats to foreclose on homes over unpaid dues, and whispers of favoritism toward his buddies. Clara found a pattern. Richard's rules weren't just strict. They were personal. He targeted those who challenged him, like me, while letting his allies slide. But the real twist came when Clara got her hands on the HOA's financial records. Richard had been skimming funds, funneling money to a shell company for dock repairs that never happened. The company, owned by his cousin. Meanwhile, I kept quiet, rebuilding Serenity with insurance money and swallowing my urge to confront Richard. Clara warned me that a direct fight would tip him off. Instead, she worked the shadows, gathering evidence like a spider weaving a web. She found a neighbor, Tom, who'd seen Richard near the dock that stormy night, holding what looked like a knife. Tom hadn't spoken up, fearing retaliation, but Clara's gentle persistence and a promise to keep his name out of it him to write a sworn statement. She also uncovered security footage from a nearby marina, grainy but clear enough to show a figure matching Richard's build tampering with my boat's lines. The confrontation came at the annual HOA meeting, packed with residents tired of Richard's tyranny. He stood at the podium, smug as ever, rattling off new rules about dock usage. Clara waited until the Q&A session, then stood holding a thick folder. "Richard," she said calmly, "can you explain why $50,000 in HOA funds went to a company you're connected to for repairs that never happened?" The room went silent. Richard stammered, his face reddening. Clara didn't stop. She presented the financial records, the witness statement, and the marina footage, projecting them on a screen for all to see. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Richard tried to deflect, claiming it was a misunderstanding, but the evidence was ironclad. Then came the damning blow. Clara had sent her findings to the county prosecutor weeks earlier. As Richard fumbled, 2 police officers entered the room. They didn't arrest him on the spot, but they served him with a notice to appear in court. The charges? Embezzlement, vandalism, and fraud. The room erupted in cheers and jeers as Richard's empire crumbled. He resigned as president that night, his reputation in tatters. Clara later told me the prosecutor was building a case, and Richard's indictment followed months later, based on the financial fraud and the boat incident. I never had to say a word, just let the truth do the work. Richard's downfall was more than a personal victory. It sparked a revolution in Bayview. A new board was elected, led by Clara, who pushed for transparency and fairness. The HOA rewrote its bylaws to limit the president's power and protect homeowners from petty vendettas. My boat, Serenity, was reborn, and I took her out on the water the day the indictment was announced, feeling the breeze carry away years of frustration. The community felt lighter. 2 neighbors started talking again, unafraid of Richard's clipboard. What would you do if someone tried to control your life with petty rules and personal grudges? Was Clara's quiet strategy the right call, or should I have confronted Richard head-on? Share your thoughts. I'd love to hear where you stand on navigating justice when the system feels stacked against you.